Go to logi.gg/Datto and use code Datto10 to save money on your next Logitech purchase. The final shape is upon us, with Into the Light coming very soon, which is a completely free update and celebration of some of the most iconic weapons in Destiny's history, and a great way to catch up to prep for the final shape. And if you're someone who has fallen off the face of the earth when it comes to Destiny, this video is going to try to bring you up to speed based on whenever you happen to leave. It's going to be a very broad overview. I'm not going to get into the deep details of stuff because I don't want to melt your brain trying to explain every single facet of the game. Also, I could talk literally all day on that. Obviously, the longer you've been gone, the more there is to catch up on. But also, Final Shape is likely to have its own big changes as well, so some things in this video, depending on when you watch it, may already be out of date. I'm going to have links to videos in the description that go over certain topics in more detail if I happen to have a video on them. Now, this question is a little bit irrelevant, but I do want to start the video with the question of, I'm coming back to Destiny, what do I need to buy? And I'm sorry if I repeat myself in the video, I'm adding this part after I've already recorded the audio. The answer is nothing, at least right now. Into the Light is looking like it'll be able to satiate the average player for its duration, and if you didn't want to buy anything, I don't think you need to. If you do want to cram in as much Destiny into your cram hole as possible before the final shape, after playing Into the Light, I would be buying Lightfall plus the annual pass. This is going to get you Lightfall and the 4 current seasons so that you can play all of those seasonal missions and this and that and activities and blah, 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 blah before they are likely removed from the game on June 4th. I would not be paying $50 for it, especially if you don't think you're going to be able to play all of the seasonal content before Final Shape. I would try to wait, if possible, for a sale or find it on sale somewhere, but it's your money. Just know that on June 4th, a lot of that content's probably going bye-bye. Otherwise, the only things left to buy are expansions for the most part, and you're buying those for access to certain exotics or raids or stuff like that, with the exception of Witch Queen, in which you're buying that also for the campaign, because the campaign's really good. I would absolutely wait for a sale on these items before buying them. You should buy nothing at their current base price. Wait for a sale. Bungie will do a sale. Someone's going to have a sale. Someone's going to have it cheaper somewhere. I'm going to start with people who have literally never played this game before and go forward in time, so you may want to skip forward depending on where you left. If you've never played Destiny 2, and you're hopping in for the first time, well, you picked a hell of a time to hop in, but welcome. So I don't really have any specific advice for you other than if you're a free-to-play player that you're eventually going to want to buy something if you get interested in the game enough. This game is more like free to try. Play is a very generous word there. I'm guessing that Bungie will put a lot of stuff on sale close to Final Shape. Humble Bundle just had the cheapest Destiny sale that I've ever seen, so you just missed that, but hopefully another sale will come around soon. I would not be paying full price for anything other than the Final Shape at this moment in time. Unfortunately, you can't play the game's story from the very beginning, and let me tell you, there's quite a lot of story to cover. You have the Red War and Forsaken campaigns, which aren't even in the game anymore, save for like one of those missions. You've missed 20 seasons worth of storytelling. That stuff's not in the game anymore. So if you do want to truly get invested into the story, it's going to take some adventuring to YouTube to find out more, which is why I recommend learning the gameplay stuff first. Get used to that. And if you're still into the game and you're still interested in playing and you want to learn more about the story, then you can go learn more about the story. We're literally hitting our Avengers Endgame moment like right now. You can hit up the timeline reflections area of the game to get a little bit of story from older stuff, but if you want the full scoop, YouTube's going to be your friend. In terms of what to play, I will say that the Witch Queen campaign is the best campaign overall, so if you do want to play earlier campaigns, I would play the earlier campaigns before Witch Queen. Not only will you be able to play chronologically, but you'll also appreciate how much better Witch Queen is over the previous campaigns that are available. Going from the Witch Queen to older campaigns is a bit of a downgrade, which is why I recommend just going chronologically. Lightfall, from a gameplay perspective, is still solid, but story-wise has some issues. What you'll use to learn the game in the most basic of ways is the Guardian rank system. The game will demand that you do certain tasks in order to increase your Guardian rank. Guardian rank has a few in-game implications. You need to level it up to get armor mods, which are a pretty big deal, and you need them to unlock more loadout slots, which I will talk about later in the video. However, some other things are also gated behind Guardian ranks, so you should do as much as you can to level your ranks at least one time to unlock most of the game. It's a tool to use to get familiar with some core things about the game, other than the, at the moment, lackluster new player experience. Otherwise, once you get through a chunk of the ranks at least one time, doing them all over again, since it resets every season, isn't that important. If you have a friend to help guide you, they're going to be the best source of information. There are new player guides all over YouTube, though. In terms of what class to pick, you should just pick whatever looks the most fun to play. All of the classes have incredibly strong build potential in all aspects of the game. Every class can use every weapon, so don't worry too much about trying to pick the best class because there isn't one. Otherwise, I don't even like to give huge amounts of advice because you only get to play a game for the first time once, and I think going and just adventuring and learning on your own is the most fun way to play. If you really want to learn how to maximize your experience, you can come back to YouTube, check some videos, all that kind of stuff. But for now, if you're brand new or close to brand new, just go play, have some fun, and then come back when you're wanting to get more out of the experience. One thing I will say to do, though, is to check out the Destiny Item Manager extension in your browser. It is an almost necessary tool to play the game if you plan on investing a lot of time into it. The next batch of people I would like to enlighten are the Year 1 players or the Forsaken players. Given the amount of things that have changed since then, you might as well be playing a completely new game with only the most core Destiny concepts still being the same. Get weapons and armor by doing stuff. The amount of strength we've gained since Forsaken and Year 1 is incredibly high, and the game is a bit faster paced than this era of the game. The number one thing has to be subclasses. You no longer choose a block of different skills and stuff. We are now working with the aspect and fragment system. Aspects are core skills and cornerstone pieces to your subclass, whereas fragments are smaller tweaks that you can make to push your setup in one direction or another. It's all modular now. We also have two more subclasses, Stasis and Strand, to work with. These are dark subclasses because they use the darkness as opposed to the light. However, fully unlocking all of these subclasses when starting from scratch, like no materials, no nothing, might take a little while to do, especially Strand. Note that you do need to own the Beyond Light expansion to access Stasis, and you need to own Lightfall for Strand. Number 2, I guess, is weapons. In Forsaken, they got rid of forcing players to use double primary weapons, and randomly rolled weapons are back. There are way more weapons dropping than we've ever had before. Now, you can do double primary if you want, but it's not mandatory, nor do I really encourage it for the majority of the game. There are also craftable weapons, where after you get the pattern for a weapon, you can craft it, level it up, swap the perks from a predetermined perk pool the weapon has, and even enhance your perks to give them small upgrades over their normal versions. You may see weapons with red borders around them when you pick them up. Dismantling these weapons or taking their deep sight resonance out will give you pattern progress, with most weapons needing 5 of these to get the pattern. Note that not all weapons have patterns, though. Number 3 is probably leveling. In Year 1 of Destiny 2, leveling was kinda stupid. In Forsaken, it was much better but more complicated. As of now, there's the soft cap, which is 1750 as of right now, the power cap, which is 1800, and the pinnacle cap, which is 1810. All of these will increase in the final shape. You reach the soft cap by just playing the game. Pretty much any armor or weapons that drop from any activity will level you up to this point. Power cap items come from playing more specific activities, and pinnacle cap from even more specific activities, typically endgame stuff, but there are more accessible options for pinnacle loot. However, with Into the Light, there is going to be a reward chest called Gift of the Thunder Gods that you can just open up for free that will automatically drop you gear at the power cap. So just scoop up that chest as soon as Into the Light is active, and you won't have to worry too much about leveling until the final shape. You'll be able to hop into the majority of content right away. Forsaken returning players, keep watching because that is only the tip of the iceberg. Alright, so now let's say you quit during the shadowkeep era. This is where the game started to get a bit more normalized with the seasonal content format, content rotating in and out of the game based on season. This was Season of Undying, Dawn, Worthy, and Arrivals. The big thing here was the introduction of the seasonal artifact. It works in a much simpler way nowadays. You simply pick which perks you want to equip, and that's it. They are always active. There are no mods to equip or anything like that, and you can unselect and reselect new perks at will. But the most you can have equipped at once is 12. For those not in the loop, the seasonal artifact unlocks over time as you gain levels for it specifically, and in it are passive buffs that you can rotate in and out as you please, no cost or anything. When you get an unlock, you select a perk, and then when you unlock enough perks, the next column of perks opens. These are meant to change up gameplay season over season. For example, this season is very stacked with solar subclass effects, so solar-based things are pretty good. Next was the introduction of champions. These are special endgame enemies, which are much tougher to kill without the use of anti-champion effects. These anti-champion effects used to only be from the seasonal artifact and only for certain weapons each season, and while that is still the case, there are now subclass effects that can stun champions too, introduced in the Lightfall era. You can brute force kill champions in lower difficulty activities, but in the higher difficulty stuff, you're gonna want the ability to stun. You can check what effects stun what champions in the character menu by hovering over these symbols. Next, we have finishers. Finishers are just fancy ways of killing enemies so that Bungie can sell more microtransactions. Alright, they do have some gameplay aspects as well. They allow you to kill most non-boss enemies outright when they're at low HP levels with a single button press. Some enemies have a very high finisher HP threshold to the point where you might be able to hit a finisher on an enemy when they're at half health. Finishers can also trigger various effects across the game, from exotic armor procs to armor mods to aspects and fragments. Smart use of finishers can really speed up your gameplay, but you won't need to use finishers in most low and mid-tier content unless you're trying to do something really specific with your build. Look for a little dot over an enemy's head. That'll tell you that they can be hit with a finisher. We got Grandmaster Nightfalls during this era as well, which are some of the most difficult content the game has to offer in a 3-player team. Trials also came back during this time, which is a competitive 3v3 PvP mode. It used to be called Trials of the Nine in year 1. It's now called Trials of Osiris. Oh yeah, it's also 3v3 and not 4v4 anymore, and has gone through its own sets of changes during the years. Bungie has been trying to make it easier and easier to get to the Lighthouse, aka the big goal of Trials of Osiris, the big prize for competing, and if you can't get there, which is done by winning much more than you lose, they've been making loot from Trials more and more accessible over the years. Legend and Master Lost Sectors, in addition to an activity on Neo Muna from the Lightfall expansion called Vex Strike Force or Supernumerary Blitz, is gonna be the main way to acquire exotic armor pieces. Legend and Master Lost Sectors have about a 1 in 4 and a 1 in 3 chance of dropping an exotic armor piece after a run, whereas the Vex Strike Force public event pretty much always drops an exotic, but those events are on a timer. Advanced difficulty Lost Sectors are probably not something you're going to interact with immediately upon return unless you quit very recently, but after you get acclimated with the game, you're going to want to visit them for new armor. They are end game difficulty though, at least Master is. There are Discord servers and channels that also alert people as to when the Vex Strike Force public event is going to be showing up if you're in a Destiny themed server or channel. other exotic news, we have the Monument to Lost Light, which is where a lot of legacy exotic weapons reside that you can purchase. And Rahul also has exotic engram focusing, where you can take an exotic engram, which are much more common nowadays and don't automatically decrypt, and you can select from multiple options to try to get the exotic armor that you're looking for. Moving to the Beyond Light era, this is when Bungie upgraded their engine, but as a result, a lot of content has been removed from the game. Certain destinations, strikes, raids, PvP maps, you name it, all put into the DCV, aka the Destiny Content Vault. The only things that remain on a permanent basis are expansions and the current expansion cycle's seasonal content. Seasonal content is removed at the end of an expansion cycle, so when Final Shape rolls around, it is assumed that Season 20, 21, 22, and 23 content will be removed as well. Some of these things make it back into the game in a different form, like the Leviathan returning for a couple of seasons, or things like Battlegrounds, which are seasonal activities that get thrown into the Vanguard playlist. Stasis was the first new subclass since the original 3, revolving around the use of slow and freeze effects to crowd control enemies. It featured the now current day subclass format in the form of aspects and fragments when it first debuted. The biggest other thing that happened during this era was weapon sunsetting and then sort of unsunsetting. Essentially, any weapons from Season of Dawn, aka Season 9, and earlier are no longer able to be upgraded. The icon in the top left is going to be grayed out. They will still increase in level when the level floor is raised, and they are technically still usable in older content where power level, it's called power level now by the way, I forget when that happened, where power level isn't relevant. But pretty much no one uses anything older than a year or two anyway, because it's all been power crept by newer stuff. Into the Light is going to have some of the strongest weapons and highest item budgets out of pretty much any weapons that we've gotten anyway. We also got Transmog shortly before Witch Queen during this era of the game, aka Armor Synthesis, where you can unlock the visual part of an armor piece and equip it onto your current armor to make the fashion part of the game more enjoyable. You can unlock 10 armor pieces for free per class per season by doing bounties that aren't really that tough to do, or by purchasing the different class synthesis from the Eververse store for real money. The Witch Queen era is when we got what I consider to be the first actually good campaign experience in Destiny 2. The Witch Queen campaign is incredibly good, the story, the gameplay, a lot of things, and I really would suggest playing it at some point. The Witch Queen also introduced the Legendary Difficulty campaign, so if you're looking for a little more heat, in addition to increased rewards, I would play the Legendary campaign, and that goes for Lightfall and Final Shape as well. The Witch Queen era is when we rotated from the subclass blocks that I mentioned back in the Forsaken era to the current setup of aspects and fragments. This is called subclass 3.0 and is present now on all light and dark subclasses. It was also around this time that Bungie started rolling out the current vendor system. Each major NPC, like Zavala, Shax, etc., sells their respective weapons for engrams and glimmer in addition to them dropping from their respective activities. You earn engrams by playing that respective activity, and then you can either just crack open your engrams for a random drop, or you can buy specific items. Umbral engram focusing, for those who remember that, is kind of a thing of the past now. You just hit up the vendors, even including exotic engrams and the Cryptarch, like I mentioned earlier. Planetary materials are gone as a currency. They don't exist anymore, but you can still pick up planet materials for reputation for that specific planet. Many materials and items have been phased out completely or simply do not exist anymore. So if it says that you can dismantle it, you can, and you probably should unless you like keeping old stuff around for fun. You can still turn in certain old stuff at Rahul in the tower. Even legendary shards are going bye-bye in the Final Shape. The Glimmer Cap was also recently increased to 500,000, and advanced materials like Ascendant Shards and Enhancement Prisms now stack to higher limits on your characters. Armor has also evolved quite a lot during the game's life. It currently works like so. You have mobility, resilience, recovery, discipline, intellect, and strength as your stats. Each of these stats does different things. Resilience is widely considered one of the best stats in the game for all characters because it now reduces damage taken. You can also equip your armor with armor mods, and you can increase the amount of mods you can fit in your armor by leveling your armor up with materials. If you're wondering where a lot of older, more specific armor mods went, Bungie simplified a lot of the armor mods when rolling out Subclass 3.0 because a lot of people were just confused by them or weren't using them that much to the dismay of more dedicated players. If you'd like to learn more about builds and stats, check the description. Also, masterworked weapons no longer create orbs of light on rapid kills. Orbs of light are now also called orbs of power. Siphon armor mods, which are found in your helmet, have taken over as the orb generation tool. This brings us to the most recent people to leave and potentially return, I guess if you're watching this, which is the Lightfall crowd, people who played Lightfall and then bailed. For example, we got in-game loadouts. Equip all of your gear, go over to the loadouts menu on the left side of your screen, in your character screen, and you can save your loadout with a single button press. Increase your Guardian rank in order to get more slots, up to 10. Also, very recently, we got Fireteam Finder in-game, aka in-game LFG, aka looking for group. So now you can find people to play with using all sorts of different tags and whatnot directly in the game. We're still within the same expansion cycle, and therefore things haven't really changed too much otherwise. We've gotten new weapons, new armor, the whole nine that we usually get. We're moving to a new format of post-expansion content. We're going from seasons to episodes, but we don't really know a lot about that format yet, but also they're still probably going to be similar to seasons to a degree. My main suggestion for Lightfall returning players, and really everybody, is to go play all of the seasonal content that's currently available before it probably goes away when the final shape launches. Go play Season of Defiance, Deep, Witch, and Wish, probably in that order, as there are no more time delays with their content. You can play everything in a row, no waiting, no nothing. If you don't own that content, or maybe you just don't want to play it, then you're probably just going to be waiting around until the final shape while playing Into the Light. You should play Into the Light to get the best weapons that the game will have to offer. In Season 22, we got some exotic missions back, which can be found in the Legends tab. They are good for trying to get some red border weapons from the Witch Queen era seasons, but it's tough to farm them. It's more of a once per week per character type deal. There are 3 different missions in the rotator. However, there aren't many red border weapons that drop that I don't think have some kind of a replacement that came out this year. Like, one of the weapons is Callus Mini Tool from Season of the Haunted. There are absolutely replacements for that weapon which came out this year. Specifically, Bug Out Bag from Season of the Deep, and maybe No Survivors from the Ghosts of the Deep dungeon, if you have that. Ikelos SMG is another. Subjunctive is a new ARC SMG. It just came out. It's arguably better, so don't really sweat it too much. If you do want to play that content and you're looking for some more updated builds, check out the video called 10 builds that I'll use to get through the next 6 months. It's linked in the description. There is some level of assumption that you know how builds work, as it was made for people who are still active on the game. In terms of preparing for Final Shape, the best thing that you could do is craft the best weapons of the year. You can also find that in the description. Fortunately, 3 of the 5 best weapons are from this very season, Season of the Wish. So it's in content that's still relevant or actively being played. Otherwise, the game is still pretty much as you left it in the grand scheme, and I think you should just focus on playing seasonal content and enjoying it while it's here, while also playing Into the Light to get super good weapons. Okay, so that's my as fast as possible trying to catch you up on Destiny recap. Again, it's a very broad overview. A full recap of everything in the game would take literal hours. Commenters, feel free to drop some new player or returning player bits of your own for people to read after they have watched this, because there is an infinite amount of information to cover, and I can't do it all in a 20 to 25 minute video. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you next time.